Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam. In this video, I'm going to be planting three climbing hydrangeas. I'm going to be planting them on trees. There are two types of vines. You have the vines that can twist around and hold on that way, and then you have vines like this one that have aerial roots. They actually root into the things that they're climbing on. Climbing hydrangeas can climb on anything, brick walls, all kinds of retaining walls, anything it can latch onto, it can climb on. You'll see these on houses and you'll see them on barns and things like that. I probably wouldn't do that on my own place because I think it would cause some damage over time. It is beautiful. I'd prefer to put it on a tree that I'm not that concerned about. This is a big wooded space. It will damage this tree over the next 20 years or so probably. It will absolutely cover the stem as it goes up. These are not fast growing to start. I'm going to plant it close to this tree. It's grown a lot in this container this year. These are vigorous growing plants, but when you put them in the ground, they tend to go through a period of getting established, getting rooted in, and it takes a couple years really before these take off. Once they do, they're very fast growing. So I would put them in the fast growing category, but with a big delay at the beginning. I talked about this in another video recently about when you're planting something new against something that's established, the new thing is going to really struggle to compete. And so I definitely am going to have to do some additional watering on this plant. It's true with any kind of landscape project you're doing where you're planting new things with old established trees and old established shrubs. They do not play nice with newly planted things at all. And they'll invade that. You're digging a hole and you're putting organic material in there, and it's like a free meal for this big established tree to root into that space really quickly and starve your new plant of water and nutrients. So just keep that in mind. It'll require a little extra attention. Climbing hydrangeas are lace cap, have lace cap like flowers, which means that flat cluster rather than that round ball or conical shape flower cluster that we're used to on a lot of other hydrangeas. Lace cap hydrangeas have a flat cluster. These are actually fragrant. They're white, and the cluster ends up a pretty good size over time. They get absolutely covered in those flowers in the late spring and early summer in my area, a little bit later as you go further north. These are super hardy, super cold hardy. They can grow in zone 5 and then down to zone 9. In terms of sun or shade, you'll see sun to shade on them. That people say they can grow in the deep shade, and some people say they need more sun, and so on and so forth. I think that would be partly zone dependent. I think if you were in zone 5, this thing could take quite a bit of sun. As you got down to zone 9, this is definitely a shade plant. I don't think it would take southeastern zone 9 summers in the full sun very well. The area I'm putting it in, I'm kind of in the middle area of that. I'm in zone 7B. Where I'm putting it right here, it's going to get absolutely blasted by sun, and then this tree sometime around 1 o'clock probably will start to drop some shade on it. It'll be in the shade in the afternoon. That's going to be ideal in my area for this. Obviously, it's a climbing vine, and it's climbing this tree to try to get the sunlight. It's racing its way up there to try to get the sunlight. So, the part up at the top of the plant will end up in quite a bit of sun, which is the plant's intent. But the roots, I do think, need some shade on them. I don't think that they want to sit out in an open yard and just cook the roots around it. It'll also be constantly in need of water, It'll do that wilting thing that lots of hydrangeas do, including climbing hydrangeas, where they do that afternoon wilt thing and you don't know to water them or not water them. Check them if you see them wilting. Likely up against this tree, there's no possibility that I'm going to overwater this plant. It's a little sandier over here on this side of my yard. I think they scraped some of the topsoil off the rest of my yard and just left the clay base. As I get closer and closer to this wood line, where I've never planted anything before since I've been in this house, this soil is quite a bit better draining. And so I'm going to mix some compost in with this and make sure that I'm holding some water in place. And I'm going to run my drip irrigation around it as well. I'll show you after I get this in the ground. So there are 3 pieces in the ground. This one right here. And I put a generous amount of compost in with that almost sandy soil that's around these trees. Second piece is there, and the third one is a little further up. I'm going to leave these 3 bamboo stakes in the ground for now, and as it puts on a little bit of growth, I'll lean it over here toward this tree and it'll grab hold. That's about as close as I could find a place to dig around them. In terms of pruning on a climbing hydrangea like this, it's really not going to need a whole lot of pruning. Obviously, if you were planting it on a house, you'd have to frame in all the window. You know, you'd be cutting on it to keep it, preventing it from going places you didn't want it to go. On this tree, I'm going to allow it to go kind of wild. I may get a few straggler pieces going across the ground here, or it might try to grab onto another tree or that kind of thing. I will control that. If it needs any thinning or pruning out the dead material and that kind of thing, that can be done in the fall. These bloom on old growth, so you don't want to do a lot of general pruning on it in the fall. There may come a day when you need to just go crazy on it and really take it down. And when that day comes, and it will, that you can do that in the late winter, early spring, as it's about to start waking up. You obviously won't get flowers that year, but you could cut this thing 3/4 of the way down on an established plant, probably with no problem, to get it back under control and to refresh it with some new growth. I'll fertilize these in the late winter, early spring with some sort of slow release fertilizer for woody shrubs. No problem whatsoever there. There will be a delay on flowers. I will get very limited flowers during this little stress time before it really takes off. And even after that, I think it will do some growing up this tree before I really have a lot of flowers on it. It may be 3 years before this thing is really putting on the show that it eventually will. You can really see how beautiful the foliage is on these and how much new growth it actually has on it in the container. Really beautiful plants with fragrant flowers. So thank you very much for watching this video, and if it was helpful, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for future videos.